Hey, it's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, My Asexual Life. This is a place to be for education about asexuality, all things asexual, and I share my own asexual life journey in order to help you in yours. So subscribe and hit the bell icon right now. So tonight I have got a movie review for you called The Present. It's a 2024 movie, so yep, a new one. And if you don't like spoilers and you think you might watch this movie, then please don't watch this video. But if you want to know what the movie's all about, then stay tuned because I am going to reveal this. So it's starring I don't know if I'm pronouncing that person's name correctly, but Ilza Fisher, this woman here. Now, if you watched the Australian soap opera, you might know that she was in Home and Away. So the mother, played by Isla Fisher, that person was in Home and Away. So if you love that show, then that's where you recognize her from. And so I'm going to tell you the whole plot, right? Basically, there's a mother and father who are married and have 3 children. And they are on the verge of splitting up. And so they've arranged for this meeting with their 3 children to be at the dinner table so they can tell them that they are separating. And they're not saying it's going to be divorce right there and then, but they're going to be saying to their children about separating. And what happens is the dad, who's the husband, he has his father's grandfather clock, like this old heirloom, come. And these workmen bring it to the door. Well, these people that are delivering it bring it to the door. And the mother, played by Isla Fisher, says, put it in the basement. And one of the children is autistic. And I do think it's very good to have an autistic kid in this movie. I think it's really good to have autistic representation. There is a conversation partway through the movie where one of the kids is saying about the autistic child, which, as far as I assumed or thought from the narrative, it's a boy. The autistic person's a boy. But it was really weird towards the end. It sounded like one of the siblings was calling the boy a lass. So I didn't really understand that because according to like movie reviews, it says a brilliant boy. Anyway, the autistic kid basically puts his grandfather clock back and gets it to work again. And I think that's quite good a representation of autistic children's, because autistic children often have very special gifts and qualities. And from my autistic friends that I know about and autism in general, when an autistic person gets fixated on something, then they make sure they see it through to the end, usually with all their determination, all their might. They make sure that they problem solve to get the outcome they want. That is something I really admire about autistic people and about autistic children, is they're usually so determined to get the result they want. They will work day and night for it and they will problem solve until they've got it. And so obviously that can be great in multiple aspects of life, including business. The downside of this is they could put that over family and friends and seeing people in real life, because they get so taken up by that particular thing, they kind of cut the outside world off, and a lot of other things aren't interesting to them because they're just fixated on doing that thing. So that's the downside. And I think they showed the autistic child very good in this, because the autistic child was determined to put this grandfather clock back together. But this is no ordinary grandfather clock. This grandfather clock turns back actual time. And so when the autistic child realizes this, the autistic child wants to stop their parents from getting a divorce by winding back time. And then the autistic child's brother and sister eventually come on board. First the sister, because what happens is time keeps getting rewound, and you find out that the mother is a fitness person. She does fitness classes, and one of the guys in her classes is attracted to her and invites her out on this lunch date. and she believes that she's going to separate from her husband anyway, so she takes him up on the offer. But it's also in the storyline that this is partly why they're splitting up in the first place, because she's ending up having attention from a younger, really good looking guy, and the husband, the father, is kind of getting very old, and he looks old. He's not looking after himself. His hair's all kind of like wild. He's wearing really old-fashioned suits. He's smoking again, so he's not looking like the younger, more attractive guy that he could be for her. And this guy, I couldn't work out where this guy that really is into the mother, and is attracted to the mother, and basically having this dinner date, this lunch date, if you like, with her. I couldn't work out where I'd seen him from, and he is from 2 Step Up movies, because I thought, I'm sure I'm attracted to this guy. I'm sure this guy's from a Step Up movie, and he is. I thought he was a different guy from a Step Up movie, but he is the guy in a Step Up movie Step Up movie 4 and 5. So yeah, so it's very interesting, but it is very repetitive movie, because the autistic kid goes back in time about 36 times. You don't see all the times the autistic kid goes back, but it's about 36 times before finally they say to their sister what's going on, because then they need the sister's help, because they can't do everything on their own. And the whole storyline gets kind of like pulled out a bit. So first of all, it's like, trying to stop them from separating, and they try like loads of different ways, and the more times they reverse time back, the more intricate it gets from what they're doing. So for example, the autistic child buys almonds because the autistic child knows that the mother is out on a date with this really handsome guy from her class. He's a student and he's allergic to nuts, so the autistic kid purposely gets almonds to make him choke on the nuts, so that the mother doesn't end up kissing this guy and his parents splitting up. I said his. I mean, it says in the reviews his, but like I said, I'm not sure, because at the end I heard the other brother saying, well, the brother saying, if that person's not a boy, calling the autistic child lass. So I don't really understand that. I'm sure I heard them say twice lass, and I'm thinking, I'm sure that it's meant to be their brother, a boy. So that's why I'm using the term there quite a lot. But in the movie reviews, it says a brilliant boy repairs a grandfather clock, basically, and then turns back time to try to stop his parents from separating. And this is the crux of the story, but it's interwoven with other elements. So for example, because they're separating, the father is going to go and stay at a friend's, but then the wife is saying, oh, that place is really dirty and disgusting. So then the father then decides to phone up a guy to get him to help him, and this guy's getting him a bachelor pad, and then his wife finds out and says, oh, you'll get, you're dress, you're getting this bachelor pad because you going off, you're interested in the women. And the daughter changes the dad's appearance, takes the dad for a makeover, but then the mother, thinks that he's trying to get a bachelor pad, and got all dressed up and shaven and everything, and hair cut short, nicer clothes, to impress another woman. And so there's always like miscommunication, misunderstandings, and it goes on and on and on. It's so repetitive, and it's really weird, because it was shown as a kids movie on Kids Club. It's a PG, but later on, like much towards the end of the film, when they're trying to get their mother and father back together, at one point they're nearly succeeding, and then the father has sex with the mother. So there's a sex scene in it. I'm thinking, this is a PG, and it's a weekend at Kids Club. Like, you don't see them actually having sex, but she is over him and basically moves off him, and she's just in a bra and pants. And it's like, well, clearly they've meant to have had sex, you know what I mean? So I just thought that was so bad for a kids movie at weekends. But I ended up being the only person watching the movie in the screen I was in anyway. And even the guy who works at the cinema, he said there was meant to be 3 other people. Did you enjoy this screening just to yourself? Well, I did like the screening just to myself, but it's a very weird movie for a kids movie, and it is highly repetitive. You know, it follows the same thread all the time. They're just trying not to get the parents to separate and divorce and split up. And the grandfather clock, meanwhile, is just, you know, getting more and more worn down. So to the point where it's not going to work anymore. I mean, there's some interesting things the way they do it. I mean, at one point, the kid's going to smash a place up. So when, you know, I told you that the father was trying to get this place, which is a bachelor pad. He didn't mean for it to be a bachelor pad as such. He just wanted a better place for himself because he realized from talking to his wife that his mate's place was dirty and disgusting. So he wanted a better place for himself. Well, in order to stop that happening, because this guy is showing him around this bachelor pad, before this guy shows him around, they can see into the future of the grandfather clock. So they go around smashing all this place up, smashing TVs up, smashing stuff up, writing on the walls, "Do not live here," and all this type of thing, like, "Go away." So it's kind of a weird movie. I thought it was very bizarre for a kids movie. I wouldn't have put that in a kids slot personally. I think it's too adult. I mean, there's one scene as well where the girl, she's supposed to be with this guy and going out to a dance with him. You know, it's like a prom type thing. I think it's some sort of school, or is it school or college thing, right? But she gets in the car with him and tells him she can't go tonight because she knows the parents are going to split up and she's got to stop them splitting up, right? And her dad said, "Please be there at the table, you know, because me and your mum's got something important to tell you." Well, she knows what's going on because she's seen the future and had it rewound with her brother through the grandfather clock. So, which obviously the autistic child was the one who, you know, fixed it. And so anyway, um, there's this scene, like I said, where she's in the car with this guy telling him she can't go to the dance. And then he's like, "Oh, these are wasted then." He's got like a whole pack of condoms. And she's like, "Oh, you like got a whole pack there." You know what I mean? So he's just basically after her for sex. And in a way, she saved herself by telling him she can't do that. He's like, "Oh, well, I'm not going to put these to waste or whatever." And it got a whole, or these are just, you know, it's a waste or something. Anyway, while she's doing this like play or something, I didn't really totally understand it. And then this theatre performance, and then this guy who was going to have sex with her then asks another girl to this dance. And then she gets asked out by this guy who's foreign and much better looking and cuter. The other guy was good looking, but this guy is much more better and cuter. She gets invited to, I think it's a actual film or theatre performance. And she said, "Yeah, but when?" And he says tonight. She's like, "I can't do tonight," because she still can't do tonight. But this guy's really good to her because he dresses up in theatrical, I can't even pronounce it, costume. And at one point, he goes into this shop. This is a funny bit. It's a whole movie supposed to be like a comedy, right? But I don't think it's that funny as to be warranted called a comedy. And anyway, so the daughter who likes this guy who's much nicer, she arranges for him to do a theatrical performance in a shop where her mum is. And the theatrical performance, he's saying in the words that basically not to leave the person, you know, to appreciate what you've got and to value and cherish what you got because you only get one life, this type of thing, from what I remember the words being. And so that's like making her think twice. So when they're trying to change back time, they're trying to make the mother think twice about leaving the father and vice versa, but they're not really succeeding. And in the very, very end of the movie, it takes all the children coming together to show love to their parents and being a family unit to actually like, and the autistic child saying something finally to to save them. That's how it ends. But it's just a very weird movie. I've told you the ending now. It's just very bizarre. Very bizarre. And you know, throughout the movie you see the siblings, the children just don't get on in the beginning. And for a long time they don't get on. The autistic child's made to feel like left out and isolated, and the siblings don't really understand the child. One of the daughters like, I know it was hard on you and I didn't really pay you time and attention before and didn't treat you well, and apologizes, and then the other brother finally joins them and eventually they grow closer. And it's because they grow closer as a family that finally the separation looks like it's not happening at the end, although it still wasn't 100% clear. But basically the mother comes in this like tight dress with her little boobies showing, and like I said, for a kids movie it's very weird, and all dressed up, and the father's I think she's supposed to be going out with the father, so everything's supposed to be fine in the end. But it didn't actually completely categorically make it fine for me in the end. I would have liked to have seen her and him holding hands together and say mummy and or mum and dad are going out now, for some quality time with ourselves. You'll be fine to look after your siblings or something to their daughter. That would have been a good ending, but they didn't really do that. And so yeah, it was a bit of a weird ending. I well, I only paid like, what did I pay? £2. I think it was £2.49 or £2.75, something like that. So I guess it was worth paying that money. It's worth it to see a different movie, but it's not something I think you should pay full price for, and it's not something I'd really go around recommending as one of the bestest films to watch. I think it's okay if you've got nothing better to do with your time, or if you just want to watch a movie that's a bit different, but it's actually a bit boring at times because it's very repetitive. And it's not really what I'd call a kids movie, and it has got a sex scene in, so it's not 100% like free of sex. I mean, you don't really see any sex, but you see her in her underwear, like her bra and knickers and that, and it's just like, why did you need to put that in there? And it's like, you know what I mean? So it's implied sex, really, but it is a sex scene in the sense that they've just meant to have had sex together, but she's still got her bra and pants on after the covers are flung back. So it's a bit weird. It's just all a bit weird, the movie. If you want to see a weird film that's a little bit weird on top of weird and a very repetitive in some parts, and you want a very basic storyline where the mother and father are about to split up, the children don't want them to split up, so this family heirloom is repaired by the autistic child, who then decides to turn back time to try and get the parents to stay together, can't do it alone, so eventually enrolls his sister and then the other sibling, which is the brother, to help him. And yeah, there are some funny moments, but I didn't think it was that funny. I wouldn't really call it a comedy like they put. I just think it's a very, very basic storyline. I went into Nando's because it was a day I was on a self-date and told them like the basic storyline. The person thought it was boring. And they thought it was like miserable. They're like, oh, how miserable, like just trying to get the parents back together. Sometimes it's better to just leave if I'm lucky to have my parents together for 55 years in real life. But you know what I mean? Like if two people really don't want to stay together, it's like, should you be forcing them, and pushing them into it? But the whole point in the end is, well, they couldn't force them and push them into it by turning back time. All they could do is persuade them to stay by being an actual family unit, because the kids weren't acting like they loved each other or cared about each other in the beginning of the movie. And you see the grandfather clock and the attempts to get the parents to stay together, bringing the actual children closer together. That's meant to be the little twist. But I just think it's a bit weird. It's one of the weirdest movies for a kids movie I've seen, really. But you know what I mean? It's not that bad. It's nothing really terrible. I don't really like seeing the sex scene, but it's not like you see them have full blown sex. But it's just a very weird film. I would not pick it as a kids movie. But if you've got a bit of cash and you want to see a kids movie and you pay kids prices, then why not go and see it and just think, I'm going to see something a bit repetitive that's quite formulaic. But Isla Fisher was in Home and Away, the actress that plays the mother, and lots of guys would probably think she's good looking, and then the guy who's in her fitness class, who she almost has an affair with in the movie, he is out of Step Up movie, so he's very good looking. And I think the dad's meant to be older, good looking guy. It's not really my type at all. But But there we go. So yeah, and I'm not sure if the child who was autistic in the movie is autistic in real life, but I was glad to see autistic representation. I was glad to see they did tackle the conversation in the car where one of the siblings goes, "Oh, I don't understand. It's so easy for my brother to just be at home and not do anything but play games and watch TV or something like that." They make a flippant comment. And then the mother's like, "It's not like that at all. It's really, really hard." No, it's really difficult for them because they're basically isolated and they are different. And it's really hard for them. Their life is not easy. So I think that's a good point they got across in the movie. I did like the fact there was an autistic child in it. I thought, that we could do some more movies with autistic children in it, because I think it is a reflection of how society is and representing, a more minority, I was going to say orientation, but it's not sexual orientation, more of a minority population. I think it's good to have minorities represented, where they're like someone with disabilities, special needs, autism, sexualities. I think it's important to have minority representation. I think having an autistic child in this movie was probably one of the best things about the whole movie, if I'm honest. And showing the skills and talents of an autistic person, the fact they got the ability to repair the grandfather clock, the ability to be determined to succeed, the ability to be able to be very committed to something they believe in. And obviously that shows the good qualities of an autistic child. So I think that was good. Anyway, if you are going to watch it, let me know what you think in the comments, or if you've seen it already, let me know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode. I'll see you soon on the next video live stream. Lots of love. Take care. Bye.